Today we're in Palos Verdes Estates at the neighborhood church. Let's go have a look at the grounds and the inside of the church. I'm here with Dana Graham, one of the members of the neighborhood church. Can you talk about the church a little bit?
Yeah, the neighborhood church began as a mansion that was owned by a guy named John Joseph Haggerty, which fell into disrepair during the Depression and World War II. And meanwhile, the church itself had been a group of neighbors meeting in the homes around the hill, and they needed a building. And so in 1950, they decided to buy this place right on the ocean, and the sale was consummated in early '52.
Your parents were quite involved with the neighborhood church. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then can you show us some of the places that they especially gave to the neighborhood church, their time and their talents?
Yeah, my parents were among the first, the early members of the church. At the time, we were living on Via Palomino with Dennis Smith, who was probably the single, if anybody is a founder of the church, it's probably him, Dennis Vincent Smith, who was an ophthalmologist. And so my parents were living there, and my father was a commercial artist. So any time that art was required or called for, my dad was the go-to guy for that.
And what was your father's name?
My father's name was Cliff Graham. His real name was Cleland, believe it or not. They thought they were going to have a girl, so they put an N on the end when it turned out to be a boy. So his name was Cleland, probably the only Cleland in the world, but everybody called him Cliff.
And your mom, she also was very talented. Can you talk about that?
My mother was a borderline concert pianist before the war, and she joined the USO and entertained the troops during the war and gave up whatever career she might have had, so that when they moved to Palos Verdes in 1947, she became the de facto organist for the church, although it was kind of a misnomer because all we had was a piano.
Well, let's go have a look at some of these special areas in the church that really tie to you.
Okay, let's do. When we first moved into the building in late 1952, there were still homeless people and animals living in the property. The first minister, Richard Dawson, also lived in the property, and he saw all the homeless people and animals coming in. The city would not allow a sign of any kind on the property. They wouldn't allow a cross on the steeple. They wouldn't allow a sign out by the street or anything to indicate it was a church. So the minister prevailed upon my father, who was an artist, to paint this inscription just to the right of the front door as you come in, which says, "My house shall be called a house of prayer for all people," which was chosen because it let people know this was a church, but the homeless people and animals were still welcome. And if you look closely at this, you'll see some of the pencil marks my father made in 1952. I came down here with him. It took him 2 days to paint it, and I was down here with him both days. This is one of the pencil marks that he made the day that he painted this, which he did, by the way, freehand. There were no stencils, there was no computers, or none of that. When the neighborhood church first bought this building, we didn't have an organ. My mother was the organist, but all we had was a piano. She played the piano just to the left of the current organ back there against the back wall, and in the early shots of the church, you'll see that piano sitting there. In 1999, we were given this organ by Sandy Barnett, one of the members of the church, in honor of her husband, Barney. It's a Glotter Getz organ, the same manufacturer as made the one at Disney Hall. And we have organists come from all over the world who want to give concerts on this organ.
Dana, what are some of your other memories growing up here at the neighborhood church?
One of my main memories of growing up in the church is the Christmas pageant, which occurs every December and is the Christmas story, tells the story of the birth of Christ in a set of tableaus around the church grounds. There's the manger scene, there's the Annunciation, there's the shepherds in the field, there's the three kings going across the bridge. And the three kings scene in the first pageant, I was one of the pages holding the king's robe. I was almost too young to do it, but my mom finagled me into the scene.
Dana, can you tell us a little bit more about the Christmas pageant? You were quite involved in at least two of the scenes that I know of.
Yes, after I got too old to hold the king's robe, I began singing in the bushes behind the three kings on the bridge. And there's a big tree back there, and there's 6 of us that have off and on been singing. It's not the same 6 as it was 60 years ago, but we sing for the music for the scene. We sing We Three Kings and music like that. There's been other exciting things, though, that have happened with the pageant. There are live animals in the shepherd scene out in the field, and one year the live animals escaped. We didn't have a tranquilizer gun or nothing to get them back, so we chased them down Paseo del Mar. This was about an hour before the pageant began. Now they bring the animals at the last minute, and they probably got them, tranquilized in advance. There's been other times when it's rained at the last minute. They haven't predicted rain, and the whole thing is outside. And so Herod, his crown is wet, and he's upset. And the dancing girls are soaked and freezing, and the angels are not angelic because they're all wet and they're getting pneumonia and all that. And so we now have a contingency plan that if there's one cloud in the sky, we can move the whole thing inside. And we have it all. You can throw the switch, and within 1 hour, the whole pageant is inside.
Can you tell us about the Yule Parlor parade? I understand that that's one of your favorites.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories is the Yule Parlor Parade, which was the first homes tour on the peninsula. My mother ran it for about 20 years. It's a big job. You have to secure the homes. You have to get them all set up and decorated. You've got to control traffic in the street because the city insists on that. You've got to have anywhere from 10 to 12 docents per house, and they all have to know what the story is about each room in the house and the story about the house.
Along with the tour of the homes, there's also the tea, as well as the gift shop. Can you talk about that, Dana?
Yes, there are two other things that are really special about the Yule Parlor Parade. One is the tea, which over the years has grown into quite a social event. It takes place in the social hall and out on the patio. And there are cookies and sandwiches and, of course, tea, and it's quite an event. The other thing is that we've got a gift shop, which has special and unique gifts that the congregation often has made. Do not confuse this, however, with a church rummage sale, because it's nothing like that. The quality of the items in the gift shop is quite high, and you'd be surprised.
Dana, could you tell us how someone could learn more about these activities?
Sure. The church has a website, which is www.neighborhoodchurchpve.org.
Dana, thank you for sharing your personal connection here at the Neighborhood Church. I'm Betty Wheaton. See you next time.